Now, this is where I suppose question 2 and question 3 kind of come together. So question 2 asked you to compare the two places, didn't it? Yeah. So it's asking you to compare and make inferences. And then question 3 asks you to look at the language that the writer has used. And question 4 combines those two things. All right. So in this one, they're asking you to compare how the writers convey, that means get across, their different ideas and perspectives of the events they describe. In your answer, you could, In your answer, you should compare their different ideas and perspectives, compare the methods they use to convey those ideas and perspectives, and support your response with references to the texts. Okay, so where do we start with this? I'd start with the text that you understand best, and I'm going to assume a van text today. All right. What is the perspective of this person? You know, when I was saying about it, you know, all of this, the sort of emphasising the sort of idea that it was all so dangerous beforehand. Well, actually, that's what's done throughout, isn't it? What's his tone? Remember, start with tone. Positive tone or negative tone? Well, I think it's quite obviously a negative tone. But what kind of negative tone? Is it sad? Is it angry? Is it outraged? Is it concerned? I don't know what you think about that, guys. What do you think? All right. And then in this one, do you remember how I was saying earlier, like, it seems like a terrible thing, like this person is like absolutely hysterical about it, like, oh, it's awful, this is a dreadful thing. But then actually what happened? Well, some people didn't even wake up. A dreadful rattle, you know, walls were seen to move, fair enough, and people rose from their beds to see what damage had been done, but no one's house has fallen down. You know, primary school hasn't been trampled, basically, is it? You know, has anyone even died? So, the comparison between them, you know, you can compare about the events, but it's got to be from the sort of anchored to the viewpoint of it. All right. Do you remember earlier in the year when we looked at those two travellers? And we looked at the fella who was moaning like nothing else. He was on a train in the Andes, I think, or somewhere, and he had a really terrible toothache. And he was as mardy as his own backside. Even though it was quite a lovely place that he was, it was gorgeous. Whereas the other traveller was Isabella Bird. She was the woman traveller in the 1800s who was in sort of like the Wild West, almost, and you know, she didn't moan even though she got woken up by gunfire in the night. So it's that idea of like one person might have a really, you know, a particular perspective, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the events are how they describe them. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, I'm going to go back, okay, and I'm going to decide on my starting point. Okay, the writer of source A has a deeply negative perspective on the events in Aberfan. Do you see how I'm already using the words that are in the question to make sure that my focus stays on that? Yeah, I've started with deeply negative, but I'm gonna be a bit more specific about that now, and I'm going to bring tone in. All right, his tone is appalled, and I'm actually going to put a quote straight in there. Okay, his tone is appalled. And I quite like, well, I don't like it, but these bits down at the bottom, he calls it the unthinkable. Yeah, he focuses on the children straight away when he's talking about this, you know, awful thing. He's explaining how long it built up for, and then almost using the structure of his writing to almost mimic the build-up of the coal tip, so that it gets right to this point and then it instantly goes, and it sort of like mimics that idea of the structure and the sort of way it progressed through time with the coal tip building up. Oh, it makes me cry every time, guys. But I'm going to take this quote. It seemed to put to shame both man and God, because I think that works best with my with the idea that his tone is appalled. Yeah. Okay, so would this be exaggeration? Do you even want to pick about this quote? I don't think I want to be honest. I think I'll choose another quote to pick apart that's about the events. The main thing is the main thing that angers him. Oh my God, okay, maybe that isn't the way to write it then if I'm struggling that much with it. When he mentions the coal tip inching ominously towards the village, it is clear that he is angry that nobody prevented this disaster before it happened. The word ominously also tells the reader what is coming. What do we call that, guys? Okay, so the word ominously also foreshadows the events to come. What have I done there? I've talked about the language used. All right, I've talked about the writer's methods. I've also said what he thinks of these events. Okay. I don't know whether to have you do the other. Oh, I should have done the other one, shouldn't I? But do you know what, guys? At this point, you've got to challenge yourselves. All right. What I'd like you to do is start with what I've said about Aberfan. If you have any other, you know, sort of things to put in there about it, then obviously add them. But I suppose I'd like you to really focus on the more difficult text. All right, we're at that point in the year, unfortunately. So have a read back through source B and see, do you think they've got different ideas and perspectives? Right, how different are they? All right. Is the person in source B deeply negative? All right. Is their tone appalled? All right. Are they angry? Well, I don't think so, to be honest, but I won't give too much away. Right, give it a go, guys. Really